會議嘅時間到啦，而
We have reached the appointed hour and we've reached a quorum. And so the meeting is now called to order. Mr. Lau Wong Fat is otherwise engaged, and therefore I chair today's meeting. First, confirmation minutes of the previous meeting held on the 7th of April, which was a special meeting. The minutes have been sent to members. The Secretariat has not received any proposed amendment up till the present moment. If members don't have any other suggestions, shall we confirm the minutes? Thank you.
係自上次會議舉行至今呢，就委員呢收到多份嘅資料文件。
Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. The list is in front of you. Do members have any comments? Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, there is a memorandum, the first one, which is a referral from the Public Complaints Office. This one is a bit different. It does touch on a policy issue. Now the complainant checked information and found that in terms of ex gratia payment in redevelopment, there are different standards for a whole block of building vis-a-vis an individual unit. If a whole block is owned by a single owner, the valuation will take into account the after value or the value after development. But if it is a single flat, this factor is not taken into account. It seems that there is an inconsistency here. Can we put it on the list of outstanding items? This is about valuation upon redevelopment. If there is a prominent difference, then we need to look into that. We've heard queries why in land resumption the administration does not take into account redevelopment value in the formula for compensation. There are different standards for a lot and a building. I think that should be a policy matter which we should follow up after we come back from the summer recess. Okay, if there is no objection, we put it on the list of outstanding items. I was involved. I looked into that. And that's about the compensation and valuation issue. I think the Council can discuss that and ask the administration to explain. This is a technical issue. In resuming land, the compensation criteria are based on Section 12 of the Land Compensation Ordinance, Land Resumption Compensation Ordinance. With more redevelopment, there may be more land resumption. Perhaps the administration and the departments concerned in particular can explain to members in detail. Do members have other suggestions concerning the papers received? If not, then we move on to the next item on the agenda. Let us invite the officials into the room. Item 3, pilot scheme for arbitration on land premium.
Good morning, Good morning, 局長。 首先，我歡迎出席會議嘅。
May I welcome the government officials? The list of the officials have been put before you, so I'm not going to introduce them one by one. So, who would like to brief us first? Thank you, Chairman. Members, good morning. To facilitate the supply, to speed up the provision of land, the CE in its policy address announced the introduction pilot scheme for arbitration on land premiums through independent third-party arbitration issues or disputes in terms of lease modification, land exchange. Premium can be agreed through arbitration. Now, having consulted the parties concerned, such as professional groups, we have set out a framework which will be implemented in August this year. The pilot scheme will last for 2 years, depending on the number of cases using the scheme based on resources availability. The Lands Department will give high priority to high-yield cases first. In terms of the procedures for starting the arbitration process, there should be exchange of views between the owner and the administration on premium, and no agreement has been reached, and therefore the pilot scheme will kick in. Both sides have to agree on the arbitrators, and then the arbitrators will decide on an independent arbitration which is legally binding. If both parties are unwilling to resolve the dispute by arbitration, they can still follow the existing mechanism and negotiate on premium. The selection criteria for arbitrators and related matters, the Director of Lands will provide the details. I want to stress that if it is decided by arbitration, then the transaction will be completed according to the decision of the arbitration. And the arbitration will not cover issues such as government policies, land use, maximum GFA, so on, so forth. Both parties, before the arbitration, have to reach agreement on other terms for the land exchange or modification. In drawing up our framework, we have made reference to the various materials such as the rules of the International Arbitration Center in Hong Kong, and also the arbitration the UN on international trade laws model law. We will review the implementation, and we will adjust the rules accordingly, or the arrangements accordingly. Mr. Chairman, I will ask Ms. Benedict Lin, the Director of Lands, to highlight the major points in the scheme.
Perhaps I will go straight to paragraph 6 of the paper in my explanation of the framework as to when the arbitration may be triggered. Our proposal is that when the applicant has gone through 2 rounds, 2 appeals with us, and is still and there is still no agreement reached, then the arbitration may be triggered. But both parties will have to agree to arbitration. If either party is not agreeable to arbitration, we will adopt the current practice, that is, to continue with an administrative discussion on the amount of premium. And if we reach a certain point when we realize that the overall demand exceeds the capacity of the government and the Department of Justice, we will have to prioritize our cases. Under paragraph 7, we propose that if this situation arises, we will accord priority to the net increase in flat numbers or net gain in non-residential GFA, whether it is high or not, or whether there is a wider premium gap. If the gap is small, then it's more likely that the agreement will be reached before arbitration is used. Another criterion is on the number of issues in dispute. If the number of issues in dispute is small, then the case will be resolved more quickly and we will accord priority to it. In relation to paragraphs 8 and 9 is about the scope of arbitration. The scope of arbitration is confined to the amount of premium. In other words, when it comes to issues not related to the amount of premium, say for example lease interpretation, government policies, arbitration should not be used to resolve differences because these matters have policy implications and wide implication on not just one case. If a title owner is not happy with lease interpretation, then the existing avenue should be used. In other words, civil proceedings should be taken against the government for the government to defend it in open court. In relation to each case, an arbitration agreement will be reached. There is an appendix attached to it. In the appendix, and there are some facts both parties agreed upon, say for example the development parameters and the lease conditions. The second part of the appendix is the list of disputes. In this list, the specific issues will be set out in relation to the valuation components. Say for example, the land lease might have stipulated the maximum GFA, but when it comes to the disposition of the building, the number of blocks, these issues remain to be agreed upon. We therefore set out all these matters in the list for the arbitration tribunal's reference. From paragraph 10 onwards, you'll find the matters related to arbitral tribunal. An arbitral tribunal will be set up in relation to each case. We need 3 arbitrators to form the tribunal for them to make a final decision on the case. The merit of this approach is that we don't rely solely on one arbitrator. And the 3-member tribunal is the international trend in arbitration in general. With 3 members in the arbitral tribunal, we will be able to put people with different expertise in it. The president of the tribunal will be a legal professional who may be a retired judge or a barrister or solicitor with at least 10 years of post-qualification experience. The merit of this is that with a president who is a legal profession, then the legal procedures will be strictly abided by the tribunal. That will be ensured by the president. As to the other 2 members, they they should be valuation professionals, say for example professional surveyors. Both parties may nominate arbitrators, and arbitrators will be, that is the president. The president is appointed upon nomination and mutual agreement of the two parties. And when it comes to the valuation professions, each party may appoint one. The final award, the fees will be shared equally by two parties. If an agreement cannot be reached in relation to the appointment, we will invoke a section of the arbitration ordinance by asking the Hong Kong International Arbitration Centre as the appointing authority. In relation to safeguarding against a conflict of interest, we have liaised with professional bodies, stakeholders, and we have received a lot of information in relation to international practice. We propose to follow the international practice, i.e., the three arbitrators at the time of accepting the appointment will have to make a written declaration on their independence and impartiality. They are also required to disclose any matters that might be may cause conflict of interest or may be perceived as potential conflict of interest. An appointment will be made after taking into account the declaration. There is actually a guideline in relation to such declaration. The arbitrators are required to make the declaration with reference to the relevant statutory provisions and to an international guideline. These guidelines are authorities and used by the international arbitration industry. It sets out in detail under what circumstances declaration of interest should be made. It also sets out information what the government or the applicant should do in cases where there is a declaration of conflict of interest, whether it should be put into writing, whether it should be acknowledged or simply turned down. And there is also an anti-collusion there are also anti-collusion provisions. On whether the government should introduce post-arbitration appointment control to guard against arbitrators taking up the appointments with a deferred benefit implied. We have spoken with all stakeholders, and they have reiterated to us that whether it's in Hong Kong or in overseas jurisdictions, this kind of post-arbitration appointment control is something unheard of. Arbitration doesn't just occur between the government and landowners. It's also something that is quite common in other areas. As I've said, that the International Bar Association guidelines have been used as a standard, and in the guidelines there is no mention of post-arbitration appointment control. We think that there is no need for us to deviate or go beyond international practice, because if we do so, the government may not, well, the parties may not be able to find arbitrators, and the pilot scheme will not be able to achieve the effect as it is intended. The ultimate purpose of the pilot scheme is to increase supply of GFA and land supply. We do not want applicants to have the cake and eat it. In other words, once they have got the arbitral award, they do not in the end sign the agreement with the government. So we aim at making sure that these amendments will be amended. This forms a part of the contract. We aim at disincentivizing the government, the applicant, from not executing the land document. We, as a result, asked for a deposit. We asked for 15%. We asked for 15%. The first 10% will be paid as cash deposit upon signing of the arbitration agreement, and the remaining 5% will take the form of performance bond to be cashed only when the applicant defaults. In other words, if in the end the applicant default, then the 15% will be confiscated, and the government reserves the right to take the case to court. In relation to the valuation, well, since it has to be as closer to the market as possible, but arbitration may take time. And if in the process valuation changes, it will further drag out the arbitration process. Both parties will fix the valuation date as the date when the arbitral tribunal is first constituted. And of course, we have to ensure that the award will be given as close to the time of the valuation as possible. So we set down a time frame for the tribunal to make an award. If an extension of time is needed, it will have to be done with the agreement of parties, and the parties may also need to reserve the right to make adjustments to the valuation date. Of course, each case is different. For reference purpose, if it's a document only proceedings will require the tribunal to give an award in 10 weeks' time. If parties do not agree to documents only proceedings and they ask for a hearing, then a longer time frame will be agreed upon by the parties.
As for paragraphs 21, that is about the arbitral award. It is a 3-arbitrator tribunal, so the decision will either be a consensus or a majority vote. Apart from submitting information to the grounds and arguments to the tribunal, we will not set any conditions for the amount or set any ceiling for the amount. It will be up to the tribunal to decide based on their professionalism. Paragraphs 22 and 23 are about confidentiality. With regard to international arbitration cases, whether they involve the government or not, they are conducted with confidentiality. With regard to land premium, sensitive information, commercial information is involved. As far as lease modification is concerned, the Lands Department enters into private contractual agreements with other parties. So the arbitration will be conducted with confidentiality. To enhance transparency of the pilot scheme, we reserve the right that in signing the arbitration agreement, after the arbitration is over and the contract is signed, we will disclose what cases have been decided by arbitration and the composition of the tribunals. As for the arbitration amount, as usual, when the lease is registered in the land registry, the information, the amount premium will be disclosed. As for the cost, it will be jointly shared by both parties. And if they want to get expert witnesses, then each side will have to pay for its own expert witnesses. If there is any challenge against the arbitral award, generally speaking, the arbitration ordinance provides for the circumstances under which the arbitral award can be challenged. Generally speaking, the court will not lightly interfere with an arbitral decision which is legally binding. The arbitration ordinance provides very clearly the circumstances under which the court will intervene. They are set out in the law, such as, say, the arbitrator there is something doubtful about the arbitrator, or there are procedural mistakes. The provisions are in the ordinance concerning the grounds for challenging against arbitral awards. The above framework is based on has taken into account the views of the surveyors, the arbitrators, the legal profession, the real estate sector. We've liaised with the 8 organizations listed in the paper. We've also consulted an advisory committee. Their views have been reflected in this framework. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The floor is now open to members. Each member will be given 4 minutes, including questions and answers. So please be brief and precise. 10 members have indicated they want to ask questions. Yu Si Wing, Ann Chang, Priscilla Leung, Alan Leung, Wu Chi Wai, Chen Yun Han, Gary Fan, KK Fong, Albert Chan, Fernando Chang, and also Sid Ho, Kenneth Chan, and Leung Chi Chang. Mr. Yu Si Wing, followed by Ann Chang. Thank you, Chairman. It's good to have the pilot scheme because it will receive more land. It will release more land for property development, including residential and commercial property. Para 7 sets out the criteria for priority, giving priority. Now you say net increase in flats not less than 200. or net gain in non-residential GFA no less than 20,000 square meters. Where do you get these numbers? Can you clarify this? Some buildings may be small. They may not have 200 units. Can you use a proportion, a percentage approach rather? And my second question is about paragraph 8 concerning the amount of premium. The basis for setting the premium. Now, the arbitral tribunal will not take into account the compensation given to the affected residents. I agree with that. But there is a difference if the building is occupied or vacant. If the building is occupied, then the owner will have to pay the residents affected. If you put this down, then in the process of arbitration, this factor will not be taken into account. Can this be a basis of assessing the premium? When a building is occupied, this will be a basis for valuation. Please do not just cross it out and say that it will not be taken into account. Can there be negotiation on that? I will answer the first part of the question, and then my colleague, the Deputy Director, will answer the question on why the compensation given to affected residents by the owner will not be the basis of the arbitration, or will not be the basis of assessing the premium. As for the first question, why we set it at not less than 200 units or not less than 20,000 square meters. As for cases that are willing to go into arbitration, can be coped with by us and can be coped with by the arbitrators, then we will not set any priority. Say, for example, in August, when we start the project, when we start the pilot scheme, and there is only one case asking for arbitration, and the number of net increase in units is less than 200, we will still deal with the case. We will not turn it back. The criteria in para 7 are to deal with the scenario in which there are too many cases for us to deal with. We have to complete a case within several months. And within several months, if there are many such cases, then it will be very demanding on our resources. So we have to choose the cases according to the criteria set out. It depends on the number of cases before us. And we prefer to deal with high-yield cases first. Time is up. Anne Chang and then Priscilla Leung. Anne Chang. My question is about the qualifications of the arbitrators. Paragraph 11. Qualifications of the arbitrators. There will be 3 arbitrators. 1, a legal professional. 2 are valuation professionals. The valuation professional is an arbitrator, and he must have 10 years of experience. How many such people are there in Hong Kong? Concerning the valuation professionals, I will speak a little bit more. With regard to valuation professionals, they have to be registered under the Surveyor Registration Ordinance. They have to be professional surveyor, they have to be a member of a professional institution for 7 years and has at least 10 years of experience. Now, if he is not a registered surveyor under the ordinance, he has to prove that he has adequate experience in valuation. Ms. Chang asked how many such professionals are there. According to our preliminary contact with the Institute of Surveyors, there are in fact 2 active professional survey institutions in Hong Kong. As for those who are professional surveyors, there are several hundred of them. And the professional institutes are very forthcoming. To enable our pilot scheme to go smoothly, they will obtain more information from their members. Say, among their members, how many of them have registered under the registration ordinance? The register is updated every year. They will also inquire how many of their members have relevant experience. They will give us a list. Any follow-up question? Yes, Chairman. There are civil cases before the court, and the court first asks for mediation. Will you have these professionals to do the mediation first? Mediation may lead to a mutually satisfactory outcome. I think it's better than deciding by the arbitral tribunal. According to the paper, it's hoped that the decision will be made within 10 weeks. 10 weeks are too long, and the cost is not cheap. So will you consider mediation, and will you only accept arbitration if mediation fails? Please be brief. The arbitration on land premium pilot scheme is to deal with land premium cases which have been dragged on for a long time. And in fact, a case can be dragged on for years. We want to come to a decision. And arbitration is legally binding and more definite. Priscilla Leung and then Ellen Leung. I have to declare interest. I am an arbitrator of the Chinese Economic Arbitration Committee, and I've handled quite a number of arbitration cases.
I welcome the arrival of the pilot scheme for arbitration on land premium. I hope that it one day will expand to other disputes, say, for example, property management. This is a good start in any event. I've heard your proposal. I would like to ask, well, there are some cases that have protracted for a very long time. How do you ensure that they will participate in the pilot scheme? If either party refuses to participate, then there will be a standstill. Of course, I know that arbitral awards are binding, but I wonder whether 10 weeks is too optimistic. There are a lot of procedures to be followed, and I wonder whether you can go through all the procedures in within 10 weeks. I see that in some cases the procedure only starts after 2 years. Of course, the scope of the pilot scheme is on one thing only. Maybe that will be easier. Another matter is about the eligibility. the law department, the law faculty of the City University started training arbitrators 10 years ago. Will you encourage different law faculties to train more arbitrators? I don't know whether you have a list setting out eligible and suitable arbitrators for the parties to choose to become arbitrators in their cases. A characteristic of arbitration is that it's not in open court, and that is something preferred by the parties. What is the time gap you have in mind when it comes to the conclusion of the cases and the publication of the information? I've dealt with some cases in which there is a time lag of a year or two before information is published. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we cannot force parties to go to arbitration. They have to agree to do it themselves. Yes, we have received comments that 10 weeks is on the optimistic side. And when we propose 10 weeks, we refer to documents-only proceedings. This is only a target. There is an extension available if both parties agree to it. And currently we have no plan to ask universities to run arbitration programs, but we have contacted contacted professional bodies in relation to organizing short courses in relation to arbitration proceedings. Mr. Allen Lau, you talk about triggering an arbitration. You said that there should be 2 appeals. You refer to 2 valuation conference. Is that the case? My second question is that for general arbitration, well, parties will appoint their own arbitrator and they will agree on the president. And you now talk about, say, parties A and parties B. Party A will have to agree to the arbitrator appointed by party B and the other way around. And on top of that, they have to both agree on the president. It seems that there is an additional requirement. How come? I know that this is a pilot scheme. Well, how do you ensure that there is a bigger pool of candidates for presidents? We don't want to see just 2 or 3 presidents in all the cases. Do you have some kind of mechanism in place? Say, for example, once you become a president of a case, within a certain period of time, you cannot be the president of more than a certain number of times. Land is a precious resources, and in general, arbitration cases are confidential. But we're now talking about precious resources, land. Would you allow the public to search for it? Will the proceedings be made public just like a court proceeding for the public to monitor it? Director. Well, we deliberately put in place this approach. That is, we require one party to agree on the other, the appointment of by the other party, because we want it to be. We don't want an appointment to be perceived as not fair or one that involves conflict of interest. When it comes to the arbitration report, whether it can be searched by the public, this is, after all, a pilot scheme. We don't know what is contained in the report. There may be some commercially sensitive information. We would learn from the experience of the pilot scheme. We would like to publish information that has high reference and value for the public to search for. The first step is to make the amount public. We reserve the right to disclose information in relation to the case and the arbitral tribunal. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. I have a feeling that the developer may want to take this avenue to take their chances to get a better deal. If they cannot reach an agreement during a negotiation with the government and they take the road of arbitration, the three arbitrators will be appointed, and we will think that the arbitrators appointed will be impartial, at least. The case may be easier for lawyers, but when it comes to surveyors, we are talking about a smaller pool. So the arbitral tribunal, this approach is not very much different from the current approach. The developers may try it. When it comes to arbitration, there will be an award. How can the government show the public that they can safeguard against a deferred benefit? I have an idea. What about appointing 2 overseas arbitrators in relation to the 2 valuation professionals in a document-only proceeding? Because it will be perceived by the public that they are segregated from the interests in Hong Kong. We endeavor to strike a balance. On one hand, we want to avoid conflict of interest. On the other, we understand that arbitrators will have to be conversant about the situation in Hong Kong before they can make a decision with authority. It will be difficult if you've never participated in relevant business. I mentioned about the International Bar Association guidelines on conflict of interest in international arbitration. It has set out many different scenarios. For some arbitrators, they may be active members before, during, and after the arbitration. They might have provided services or advice to the parties. And as to how the situation is to be dealt with, they've been outlined by the guideline. I just want to add one point. As you know that in Hong Kong, people are very concerned about the interests of developers. We want to avoid perceived deferred benefits or conflict of interest in the composition of the tribunal. Ms. Chen Yun-han, I heard from the director that they would like to expedite the supply of land. That's why they proposed this pilot scheme. Given Hong Kong's political atmosphere, this issue is very sensitive. Say if it's a piece of agricultural land to be turned into another development, all eyes will be on it. And it may not go as smoothly as in overseas countries. Let me give you an example. The Lantau Island development. All the members in the development committee have been closely scrutinized because everything is a sensitive issue given Hong Kong's political atmosphere. We have a lot of questions. We have a lot of doubts about appointments of members in advisory committees. We have a hypersensitive political atmosphere. If you want to expedite the supply of land, you really have to think very carefully. You talk about deferred interest or deferred benefits. Hong Kong is different because in Hong Kong, developers have a lot of power, and the economic development focus on hinges on land development. With these powerful developers, Hong Kong people have the feeling that there is a developer hegemony. Everything is so sensitive. This is a sensitive time. You're talking about land arbitration. Then it may give rise to a lot of social problems. I would like to get an answer from the director.
The Bureau Director. I thank Ms. Chen for her view. Mr. Chairman, members of the Council, the administration announced the introduction of the pilot scheme, and then the departments concerned then work on the framework. The issue of conflict of interest has been carefully considered. And after much thought, we've decided that the introduction of the pilot scheme facilitates the provision of land through resolving the disputes over land premium amounts. This will help to release the development potential of lots in the hands of private owners, and that will be good for Hong Kong at large. Chairman, you have to listen very carefully about views from different perspectives. My view is given out of goodwill. It is very sensitive, and now you introduce such a controversial proposal. You need to think twice. Gary Fan. Chairman, the administration says that the decision of the arbitral court is binding. Conflict of interest should be avoided as far as possible. It is a very important matter. There must be a written declaration. Its independence, its fairness have to be upheld. With the current process of assessing premium is done by surveyors, professionals within the department. They do analysis, they make assessment, they conduct negotiation. Now they work as a team. It's not by an individual or a few individuals. Now, as for the pilot scheme, only 3 persons. A legal professional as the president, and then one nominated by the government and the other nominated by the applicant or real estate developer. If the real estate developer wants to influence the professional appointed by the government, is far easier than influencing the whole team of officials in the lands department. That is my concern. Mr. Chen, you hold up land, but if you get a team to hold up land, it will be more difficult. Real estate developers have control in many industries and businesses in Hong Kong. Even if you have a declaration of interest mechanism to avoid conflict of interest before arbitration, you cannot avoid deferred benefits. The professionals may be afraid of the future revenge of the developer, and therefore he makes a decision not in favor of the government. How can you avoid it? He makes a decision at the expense of the government. And what sort of information has to be kept confidential as far as the declaration is concerned? Whether there is the pilot scheme or not, the amount of premium proposed by the Lands Department is decided by a team within the department. When there is no agreement after a period of negotiation, then decision will be made by the arbitral tribunal. The tribunal doesn't pick a number out of thin air. It has to look at the related documents, information provided by both parties in arriving at a decision. If a hearing is needed, then it has to spell out what sort of expert advice will be necessary to assist the tribunal to arrive at a decision. At the end, a report has to be given to both parties with reasons given. The valuation professionals are appointed by both parties. It is not that a certain professional is just for a particular party. If we have found that there is anything unfair, unjust, or any disclosure of information to just one party, or if there is any collusion, then we will follow the matter up according to the law and the agreement. By what means? Well, you have to wait for your next round. Next, Mr. K.K. Fong. I don't agree with the scheme. I don't agree giving this power to the tribunal. Up to the present moment, I believe I myself and members of public believe that the civil servants are impartial and fair and have no interest involved. It is now being handled by the civil servants. They are professionals, and they set an amount. If they argue with the real estate developer, and then it is to be decided by an arbitration, then it will just be a compromise. It will just be a middle-of-the-road compromise, and the amount of premium will be lower than the amount set by the civil servants who are professionals. If you want to release the land, then if that is the objective, then the policy bureau director or they can say that just agree with the developer, and then you release the land for development. But I don't think that's right. If they cannot agree, go to the court. Now, since they are in the trade, there are certain things you are not able to deal with, and you cannot catch them, even if there is any there is anything which is unfair. Well, in fact, the surveyors may not be arbitrators, and they may not have arbitration qualifications. Yet they will still be appointed, and that is not reasonable. I don't think it is appropriate to give the power to anybody other than the civil servants. I oppose the system. Who would like to respond? Ms. Ning. Let me stress, with regard to the negotiation with the title owner, if no agreement is reached, then there is no agreement. The court will not make a decision on behalf of us. If we want to achieve a legally binding outcome, we have to go through arbitration. We cannot go to the court and ask the court to decide that we can't agree under the present system. I thank members for trusting the team of civil servants. Thank you for trusting us on the professional valuation. Now, let me stress that the valuation will be done by a professional team. But if our purpose is to release land for property development, I cannot tell my colleagues to say to just be more relaxed and agree with the developer. We need an objective mechanism to deal with that, and therefore we have arbitration. We propose arbitration, and there is the arbitration ordinance. There are arbitration rules. There are rules to follow. We cannot ignore them lightly. Within the framework, you can see that the administration is in charge of the design of the framework. We are in charge. As a director, you will not relax your grip, right? Ms. Albert Chan, and then followed by Fernando Chang. Albert Chan. Over the years, the lands department negotiate premium with the real estate developers. Usually, it is headed by the at least the assistant director. When Mr. Pope was the director, there were a lot of arguments. At the end of the day, the assistant director who was in charge of the negotiation took responsibility. Even the director cannot interfere as far as the valuation is concerned. Now, power is delegated to the arbitrator or to the arbitral court. Chairman, you are a surveyor, if my recollection is correct. Your performance is much better then Lau Ping Chang, and also C.Y. Leung. 689 is a liar. He is a professional surveyor. And you have seen how Lau Ping Chang worked. Some surveyors are trustworthy. I agree with that. Now, as for the director, you have just been here for a short while. Concerning the valuation for Wake and also end of business evaluation, over 1,000 professional valuation by surveyors, and not a single valuation was accepted by the lands department. Some counter offer by some offers by the lands department is just 1/3 or 1/5 of the valuation of the professional surveyors. You have over a decade, over 1,000 valuation reports have not been accepted, and now you say that you trust the surveyors. You have never done so. Just the deferred benefit will be big enough for the surveyor to live for the rest of his life in luxury. If they just work according to the instruction of the real estate developer. The Wake factory owners asked for arbitration, asked for mediation, but the director of lands refused. You refused for a single request because they don't have money to take you to the court, and you bully the small factory operators. You just couldn't care less. And there are still dozens of factory operators who have not been given a cent of compensation. 14 years have elapsed, and now you open the floodgate to benefit the real estate developers, the big consortia. Why can't you open up this scheme and test it with the factory operators of Wake? Why you don't trust the 1,000-odd valuation reports by surveyors, and you now propose to give the decision to the surveyors? Chairman, concerning Wake factory, it is about land resumption compensation under the law. If they do not agree, they can go to the lands tribunal. They don't have money to go to the court. A factory operator lost $1 million of court costs because of just an argument over a dispute over $300,000. And some factory operators killed themselves. Mr. Chen, well, you don't need to pay a cent and you get your salary.
Please be brief, Director. Well, the member mentioned about mediation. Well, in the Wake case, we did not mention anything about mediation. We require all the information to be in place. Dr. Fernando Zhang, I think this is in effect a transaction. The development right will be sold to the landowner. And before there is an agreement on sale and purchase, there is arbitration. I think that is ridiculous. Before, say, for example, if the market value of a building is $100 million, if you're only offering $50 or $60 million, of course I will turn you down. But now, what you are proposing, in effect, is, well, you have made a couple of offers. Then we shall go for arbitration. But still, your offer is too low for what from what I've expected. Say the bureau director, he has a piece of land in the NT-Northeast. Say, for example, it's worth $100 million, and the bureau And the Bureau Secretary said that I will accept a land exchange with the government, but only $50 million is offered. Although surveyors engaged value the piece of land to be worth $100 million. However, central government wants Hong Kong land to be released as soon as possible, so they will only offer 50-60 million, even though that government surveyors have calculated the value to be $100 million. Well, in the end, maybe the developer will offer $70 million, but you have to spend money on arbitration. That may be another substantial amount. The Lands Department said that they have already have a well-practiced system. You said that you're professional, but we see that's land premium assessment mechanism to be opaque. You claim the mechanism to be professional and vigorous, and now you are asking this mechanism to be handled by the market. So the value of the land may not be properly reflected. This is politics overriding professionalism. Is this something government or the civil service is willing to sacrifice? You said that it's a vigorous system, a well-practiced approach. You now want to hand it over to the market. Director, I don't see how this is a case of politics overriding professionalism. I have repeatedly reiterated that the decision is not made solely by the tribunal. It has to be done within a framework. The conditions are set by the government for agreement of the other parties, and if there is a dispute over the amount of premium, then it will be decided by the tribunal. So there is a proper step to be followed. Mr. Ho. When it comes to land, we're talking about huge interests. The last Secretary for Justice, Mr. Wang Yanlong, said on an occasion, money corrupts. In Hong Kong, there is a lot of money. And he said, big money corrupts. And in Hong Kong, with developer hegemony, it gives rise to a lot of corruption. And they mentioned in the paper about deferred benefits. It happened in 2008 and 2009 when the LegCo investigated into Leung Chin Man selling a piece of a development that dirt cheap. The Leung Chin Man sold this site dirt cheap. That's why the LegCo made an inquiry into it. He did not have to pocket the benefit straight away. He could have waited, but he couldn't wait. He couldn't even wait for 6 months, and he took up a post offered by New World, and there was public outcry. So civil servants, there is a sanitizing period, and in paragraph 17 it says that post-arbitration appointment control is not the norm. The government said that after consultation, the industry does not agree with such control. So, who in the Policy Bureau think that imposing post-arbitration appointment control is impractical because it deviates from international practice? We have to find that person. Well, when it comes to Mr. Len Chi-man, we're talking about Harbour Place. When it comes to land exchange, as long as the government-appointed arbitrator and the developer-appointed arbitrator works together, they can reduce the land premium by a wide margin and sell the site at a very cheap price. I oppose to this mechanism. You said that the recent arbitral award is not to be disclosed. I think this is a hotbed for transfer of benefits or deferred benefits. Well, in relation to your proposal, is there a need for legislative amendment? How can the LegCo keep the gate? How can you enhance transparency for the public to monitor the arbitration cases? This doesn't involve legislative amendment because this is in relation to private contract. That means once is launched, public cannot monitor it at all. As I've said, apart from the disclosure of the premium amount, when the case has finished, we will disclose the cases that have gone through the arbitration and the composition of the arbitral tribunal. Your time is up. Secretary, would you like to make a quick response? Well, just now Ms. Sid Ho made accusations. No, I did not. I only said that the public is still waiting for the Bureau Secretary to disclose its interest. I have done that in accordance with the established procedure, but you failed to disclose that to the public. Mr. Kenneth Chan. Please. It's just your own words. The public don't believe you. Mr. Kenneth Chan. I have great reservations in relation to this pilot scheme. It seems that it's logically unsound. Well, I don't know whether it's something to fob us off. No, even if we object to you, you can still go ahead. But I see a number of problems. You said that in the arbitral tribunal, the president should have rich experience in the law. And at the same time, you talk about valuation professionals not having much arbitration qualification. Another illogical point is that in relation to safeguarding against conflict of interest, you require arbitrators to make a written declaration with reference to the International Bar Association guidelines. You said that the conflict of interest in international arbitration is an internationally accepted guideline. So, when there are irregularities, when they do not abide by the International Bar Association guideline, what will happen? They are not members of the International Bar Association. You also talk about possible training courses, and that's not even mandatory. So on one hand, you said it is very vigorous and stringent, and on the other hand, it doesn't sound too stringent. On one hand, you ask them to sign declarations, which is quite straightforward. There is no collusion, no conflict of interest, no deferred benefit. And for something so simple and so straightforward, you ask for it to be kept confidential. Why? It puzzles me. Hong Kong people would like the government to keep the gate. But I see that in this pilot scheme, it seems to have tipped towards the interests of individuals. You want to make sure that the people involved will be able to make a living working for developers before, during, and after the process. So it seems that you are putting forward this pilot scheme for C.Y. Leung to say that he has delivered what he promised. You said that the land supply is tight. Have you made an estimate as to how much more land will be released after the pilot scheme? Or are you asking us just to believe you? We see that this is fraught with flaws. You might have given us a detailed presentation, but there are still a lot of questions, and there is reservation, great reservation. In relation to the conflict of interest in international arbitration guideline, it applies to all arbitrators participating in an arbitration, not just members of International Bar Association or people with arbitration qualification. So it's binding on parties participating in an arbitration as long as both parties agree to it. Mr. Leung Chi-Chiang. There is an additional avenue. I believe it will be accepted by the market. And if it's the government's initiative to use arbitration, it may give the impression that the current premium assessment done by the government is not professional enough, and they are not accepted by developers. That's why there is a standstill. In order to resolve this, the government would like to rush by introducing this pilot scheme. Will you accept that? Will you accept that people might think that the government is not professional enough to assess premium? Because this is a possible implication of the pilot scheme. Some developers don't think the offer you made reasonable. They may think it should be reduced by 30–40%. If they are not anxious to develop that site, they can wait. I think the real reason for privately owned land laying idle is not really a disagreement on land premium. Because if it is, then it's worth introducing this pilot scheme. But if there is no incentive for developers to develop the land, then this pilot scheme will be of no use. They would rather leave the land laying idle instead of developing it, making very little profit. So I would like to know, there are lots of cases involving land premium assessment.
Concerning lease modification cases, there are many of them in our hands. As for cases in the process of negotiation over the premium amounts, concerning residential cases, 20 to 30 such cases. As for those that pass the second appeal, which we propose to be the trigger, there are less such cases. The team of the Lands Department and myself sincerely hope that we can give this pilot scheme a go so that we can bring some relief to the present situation. Now, we say if they do not agree on a certain premium amount, they may think they may have many other reasons. After the scheme has been launched, how many are willing to go into arbitration? We have to wait and see, but we will see the real numbers. Members, according to the agenda, the item should only be should be stopped at 10. And we were late about, say, 8 to 10 minutes. We should have stopped at 10 concerning this item. And we still have 2 more items on the agenda. The last one, concerning Liantang, Hang Yunwei, PWP 13 GB. We may not be able to cover that. We may therefore consider whether we can have another meeting. Maybe after 1 month we can have another meeting. If you are not able to come, then maybe this item can be rolled over to the next session. I really don't want to hold up the officials here if we can't deal with this item, that item. So we only discuss this item. I mean, the tribunal, the arbitration tribunal, and then we will, after that, we will discuss the detailed feasibility study for environmentally friendly linkage system of Kowloon East, and we'll stop there. Those on the list for the present item, there are still 6 outstanding, and another 7 are waiting for a second round. So if there is no objection, then that will be my decision. After Mr. James Tien, after Mr. Michael Tien, then Mr. James Toh. Mr. Michael Tien. Chairman, concerning releasing land resources, we are getting into a blind alley. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. The relationship between the legislature and the executive is very tense, is really very political sensitive. Land premium, if it is low, then you will be criticized, collusion between officials and businessmen. If it is high, then it will be outrageous. You just check up property prices. Do we want property to be cheaper so that everybody can be housed? Yet the Lands Department has to defend government interests. You cannot offer a low premium. We really need to think what are we doing here. I think this arbitration scheme will let the Lands Department out off the hook. If you can't resolve the problem, you can go to the court and nobody criticize the court. Because in Hong Kong, maybe the court takes the lead. Nobody trusts anybody, so you only trust the judge. And I've never seen anybody doubt the decision of the judge. So I'm not afraid of passing on of interest. Who is the arbitrator? The ICAC is watching over you, and the newspapers, the journalists are also watching over you, and that is an appeal mechanism. If you are not happy, you can go to the court. So we are able to cut this knot, so to speak. You should have introduced it earlier. I want to ask those who oppose, do they have a solution if there is no such scheme? We are now in a deadlock. I still have two questions. The applicant has to have had two appeals, and you also need the agreement of the other party. If you say X, others say Y, you can't agree. He asks for arbitration. If you don't agree, you don't agree. If you believe X is right, you can disagree. Why you need the other party to agree? If one side wants to go for arbitration, why can't that go straight to arbitration? Because it's also open to appeal. Is there any argument? Yes, there is. Concerning Tin Wing Station, the building on top, the development on top of Tin Wing Station, that's because the government is asking, the government's asking prices too high. I just ask you, if you are a board member, will you ask the case to be decided by arbitration? Can you answer my first question if time doesn't allow you to answer all? Why you need this agreement of the other party? The arbitration, the nature of arbitration is that it has to be done with consensus. We just follow the practice. Just now I have received Mr. K.K. Fong's notice that he wants to move a motion. If you look at the wording of the motion, which has been put before you, I think the motion is relevant to this agenda item. After all members have spoken, then I will deal with this motion. But I would like to ask Mr. Fong to consider that. And that is, he said this in Chinese is 本會, it may also mean this council. I suggest that it should be this panel. Mr. James Toh. Now, some members don't understand that. They say arbitration is something like a court. People trust the judge, but the But this arbitration process is not a court process. It's not to be decided by a judge. And it is not subject to appeal. As for the URA, I'm a board member of the URA, and there is the argument between the URA and the owners of old buildings or old flats. The policy decision is the price of a 7-year-old flat. But who is to decide what a 7-year-old flat is worth? Now the government says that one cannot speak on vide because vide is land resumption. Now, as for the URA, the buyout is on a voluntary basis, and no arbitration is allowed. No arbitration is allowed. Now, for setting premium, huge amount of money is involved. I know that the government is very keen in increasing land supply. Now, big developers want to pay a premium and then conduct developments. But if your scheme doesn't get the trust of people, you're treading into dangerous waters. Say a lawyer has 10 years experience with the president. Is he a lawyer now? What business is he handling? What about deferred benefits? Huge amount of money is involved. Assuming that you have this mechanism, if you say a judge is not suitable to be president because the case may be heard by a court, if there is an appeal, you better get a retired judge. If you just get a lawyer with 10 years of experience, you really can't get the trust of the people. What about retired judge? You say a retired judge can be bribed. Well, if a retired judge can be bribed, then when he was a judge, he might have already received a bribe. If there is lack of confidence within the community, then it will be another cause for more conflicts and more controversies. The CE is not credible, the government is not credible, and people just think that you have a hidden agenda, and you are trying to benefit some developers. I really think the scheme is not suitable. The scheme is not credible. The government is not credible. The system is not credible to support this scheme, which may be considered to be good by you. Mr. James Tian. Thank you, Chairman. First, I have to declare interest because I'm in real estate business. With regard to land premium, some of my companies have had the experience. I will not cast any vote. I just want to express my view.
Let's look at this. The concept of premium payment is that a developer owns a piece of land and the developer wants to develop it, then premium has to be paid to the government. Say, for example, I bought a piece of industrial land for $1,000 per square foot. Next door, there is a commercial piece of land at $3,000 per square foot. So there is a difference of $3,000. I will charge you $2,000 or so for premium so that you can make a small profit. And sometimes developers will not accept that. When prices are increasing, in paragraph 6, it says that there is at least 2 appeals, and it takes about 12 months for the 2 appeals. And if prices increase, then the government will have to make adjustments. And if prices drop, well, even if the government accept the offer, accept the premium assessed, developers may not want to. I think you have to use your existing mechanism, use the lands department to have maybe a couple of rounds of discussion before the arbitration is triggered. Members are concerned that this pilot scheme will bypass or circumvent the existing professional team in the government. Don't worry, that won't be the case. And members also express concerns about the appointment. President being a retirement judge, well, that is something that I agree with. For the two arbitrators, they should be valuation professionals with at least 10 years of experience. And in relation to the written declaration, matters have to be disclosed as to whether there is any business involvements or anything. Well, say for example, the Raphael Hui case. There are allegations that he has accepted bribe. And I think that if you have 10 years of experience in Hong Kong, you would have had some dealings with Hong Kong developers. And if they don't have business ties with developers, does it mean that they are not going to have any such dealings with developers? There may be future dealings with developers. That itself is a problem. We see that 80% of the land fetch about $3,000 or so is in Whitehead. With the government putting a lot of sites on sale, prices have dropped. So no one wants to pay premium. They just want to get land sold by the government. So I think that at this time, this pilot scheme will not be effective. Well, for the reasons I've outlined, I'm not going to vote. Mr. Leung Kwok Hung to be followed by Mr. Kenneth and Dr. Kwokaki. When it comes to credibility, of course, the current government enjoys a very low credibility. CY Leung is actually a pimp. He profits by working as a middleman. That's what his firm does. His surveyor firm does by making a profit, by pushing the prices up or down. It seems that the government is only doing something so that they can be perceived as busy. They say they now want to expedite the process. After 2 rounds of negotiation with consent from both parties, they can go to arbitration. But yet they have to be able to gain something before they agree to arbitration. Otherwise, they will say no. If the government thinks it's so righteous, then it should use Article 105. Should I read it out to you? That is, you should charge the market rate if it involves a major public interest. If CY Leung thinks that Hong Kong will die without land, then go ahead. It's something that you can't do. What is the use of this pilot scheme? There will be 2 rounds of negotiation, and arbitration is used only when both parties agree to it. This is meaningless. It will only be abused. I think there will be a problem if a developer agrees to arbitration. Well, they will agree to arbitration when prices go up. It's just like the application list. developers will choose the time to trigger it. They don't have to give an undertaking. How can this be resolved? And recently the government sets up an arbitration center, but it's got no business whatsoever. There's a very low utilization rate. So my point is simple. Well, what you have been doing is effective. The only problem is a deferred benefit. Just refer to the Raphael Hui case and then write a Bible from it, from the experience. You can glean the loopholes one can take advantage of. So from the two major cases, one is Secretary Chan, and use you as an example, and then do the opposite. You've been just write a diary for Secretary Chan, and maybe on Barry Zhang is also a huge Leung supporter. You have to make sure that civil servants know what are the loopholes resulting from nepotism, and you plug those loopholes from actual experience. Dr. Kokaki, we understand that the government will exhaust all means in order to expedite land supply. But we have seen a lot of cases, say the ongoing Raphael Hui case. We're talking about huge benefits. Now, you put in place a mechanism to bypass the civil servants, a well-established practice, by using arbitration. I think this is another way for developers to take advantage of the situation. A lot of land are in the hands of the four major developers. They will only pay premium when it benefits them. For medium and small-sized developers in this day and age, well, James Tian always said that he is a small developer. I don't think he's not in a position to bargain with the government. I don't see any way the government can plug the loopholes. In paragraph 17, you said you talk about introducing post-arbitration appointment control to guard against possible deferred benefits. Well, we are talking about billions of dollars in premium. Yet, you decide against the imposition of appointment control. I think in future case, in each of them, you will be heavily criticized by the public and by the media. If you think that the current practice is not effective, because developers very often turn your offers down, well, it's because they want to maximize benefit. And even in arbitration, everything is subject to agreement of both parties, including the developers. We see from the application list that the government does not have the ability to release enough land to dilute the influence of developers. If you do not impose appointment control, you will not gain the trust of the public. Director. When it comes to appointment control, after this scheme was mentioned in January in the policy address, we have heard concern in this regard. In the past few months, during our consultation with legal professional bodies or other professional bodies, this topic was discussed. We don't have a preconceived idea. It's not the case that we wanted to impose the control and we were later convinced by a certain body not to do so. We have taken into account international practice and before we arrive at our decision. Anyone else from the couple of members? If not, that will be the end of the first round. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. The current high moral standard in our society and the ongoing cases involving a civil servant and a developer, and the criticism and doubts on the credibility of our government, I do doubt this pilot scheme, because I don't think it can operate effectively without credibility. If the arbitral tribunal, well, the tribunal will comprise of one president and two arbitrators. Presidents are to be nominated and agreed upon by both parties, and each party will nominate one arbitrator for the agreement of the other party. There are only 3 people, so they will. So in the end, everything will be taken. Everything, the middle ground will be used at all times. With the arbitral tribunal, the civil servants will be extra cautious because they want to avoid criticism. They will leave everything to the tribunal. And as a result, there will be heavy work, there will be a heavy demand. I'm not going to talk about deferred benefits today because it's a possibility. I want to talk about the credibility of the tribunal. People will doubt the credibility, and if you go ahead with the pilot scheme, it may not work as effectively as you would like it to. I received an amendment motion from Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. You'll find the wording distributed to you. At the end of the second round, I will deal with it.
喂
8 members have indicated they want to ask a second round of questions. Ann Chang, Priscilla Leung, Wu Chiu Wai, Fernando Zhang Sit Ho, KK Fong, Albert Chan, Michael Tian. Who else? If not, then I draw a line there. We have just spent an hour and a half on this. So I have to draw a line there then. 3 minutes each. Ann Chang. Ann Chang is not here. Priscilla Leung. and followed by Wu Qi-wai. Concerning arbitration, judging from members' comments, it seems that they are not familiar with what arbitration is. As for conflict of interest, arbitration as a means to settle disputes is very common in overseas countries. Some even go to a third place to do arbitration. The proposal here is just to provide a platform for cases which cannot be resolved, and the route of arbitration is only taken on a voluntary basis. Whether the pro-establishment or the opposition, they are not familiar with the arbitration process. More time is needed to explain that. We hope that we have said that many times before. We hope that there should be a dispute resolution platform. We've talked to Mr. Zhang Daxing, the Secretary for Home Affairs. The case before us is on land premium. I have not done anything in this regard, in particular involving big developers. As for Leung Kong's suggestion of resorting to Article 105 to resume land, if you are to do it for public interest in large scale, under one country, two system, protection of private property, you don't want to see developers or investors leaving us. We need to comply with the law. This is a dispute resolution platform. Just don't made up your minds now. If you have translated the discussion into English and led international arbitration sector to read our minutes, we may become a laughing stock. You members don't understand what arbitration is. Can we be more open-minded? In fact, the law schools have organized many courses on arbitration. We are not just to resolve any dispute through the court. Now, concerning disputing the decision of the judges, the Hong Wai-Ming case, the W case, many people are still doubting the decision of the court. Mr. Wu Qi-wai, concerning the arbitration, the pilot scheme for land premium arbitration, I think the administration has not faced up to this political issue. You cannot avoid this. The amount of premium can be very, very huge. Of course, it can be very small for some cases. You have to make the arbitration or arbitral tribunal seen to be fair. There shouldn't be any conflict of interest, and there shouldn't be any perception of deferred benefits. The administration set up an inquiry, committee of inquiry on the express rail. The inquiry committee or inquiry commission is chaired by a judge, and the two other experts are experts from overseas. It's difficult to get an engineer to be one of the members of the inquiry committee or inquiry commission, because you cannot get a local engineer which is not involved. The arrangement is to make sure that the inquiry commission or commission of inquiry is seen to be fair. So when you decide on the setup of the arbitral tribunal, then the president should be a retired judge, and the 2 other arbitrators shouldn't be recruited in Hong Kong. I don't know whether that's possible, but if you can do that, then at least as a matter of perception, it is seen to be fair. Would you allow Ms. Ling to answer your question? I fully understand the goodwill of the member with regard to the appointment of the arbitrators. Credibility is very important. Therefore, what is set out in the paper is the minimum requirement. As for each case, we'll bear in mind who is the most appropriate person to be arbitrators, and their credibility is a main concern. Mr. Wu mentioned a retired judge. We do not rule out this possibility. Chairman, I just want to point out that according to the paper, this point is not clearly spelled out. People still doubt the department. Hen Chang, followed by Fernando Cheung. I have 2 points. Now we are discussing the arbitrators. Ms. Ning said that there were many surveyors, many professional surveyors. They said that, and also they said that there were about 200 or so qualified arbitrators, and among the arbitrators, there are very few who are also surveyors with 10 years or more experience. With this scheme in place, there may just be a few who are qualified to be arbitrators. You have to make sure that the tribunal is fair and there is no conflict of interest. As for a retired judge may not be an arbitrator or may not have the experience of an arbitrator. Now you say 10-year experience, valuation professionals of 10 years of experience. Well, they can provide professional advice, but it doesn't mean that they are arbitrators. You have to clarify this. Now, this is a pilot scheme on arbitration, land premium arbitration. Concerning your criteria, net increase of flats no less than 200 and non-residential building space, commercial space of 20,000 square feet. What about the civil service cooperatives? Can they make use of this mechanism to get redevelopment? Concerning the arbitrator institute, it is about the arbitrators, not surveyors. As for surveyors, we require the surveyors to be registered surveyors under the registration of Surveyors Registration Ordinance. These registered surveyors, if they breach the law, they will be subject to disciplinary action. Mr. Abraham Sheikh, 3 minutes. Sorry, speaker is not coming through. His microphone is off. I declare interest. I represent the real estate sector in the council. I have seen the motion moved by Mr. K.K. Fong and seconded by Ms. Albert Chan. It's a pity that they look at it from a negative perspective regarding this positive matter. It is a place in which the rule of law prevails. If you are worried about this and about that, you can do nothing. The CE, Mr. Leung, proposed the pilot scheme so that land supply in Hong Kong can be enhanced. This is a new move. Over 100 years, land is in the hands of the officials of the Lands Department. They decide what market price is. This is really not acceptable. Many sites should have been developed, but because of land premium negotiation, development cannot proceed. The premium is decided by the officials. The CE's proposal is a breakthrough. The breakthrough is this arbitration scheme. The government and the developers can be pulled together, and within a short period of time, land can be provided for public housing and other purposes, said the Speaker. Land can be used for other purposes. There can be Section 16, and you can add GIC. The developers want development, but they will not pay a high price for development. They want a fair system, and that fair system is arbitration. As for Article 105 of the Basic Law, it's for sale and purchase of land. Hong Kong is a capitalist society, unlike the socialist city mentioned by Leung Kok Hong. Chairman, I hope that a chance can be given to Hong Kong. A chance can be given for more land. We need to build many more buildings in the coming 10 years. Without land, we cannot do that. We need the system. Next, Mr. Fernando Cheung. If the government is to resume land under the Land Resumption Ordinance, then if no agreement can be reached, the cases have to be brought before the Lands Tribunal. Abraham Check represents the real estate sector. The real estate developers own a lot of land. If they want land exchange, they have to go through a land premium decision process. He dislikes the process. A lot of interest. They say the process is too slow. A lot of interest is involved. Are you going to give up a system which is politically neutral? The premium is calculated by the civil servants. If this decision is given to a third party, is it really fair? Because the third party cannot avoid conflict of interest. The legal professionals, the surveyors are all involved. If you have 10 years of experience and if you never have any deals with developers in the past, and if you will not have any deals with real estate developers in the future, that's really impossible. Yep.
A scholar, an academic, made a proposal. The academic said that if an agreement cannot be reached, then the developer will pay 80% of the premium assessed. For the remaining 20%, it will be 20% of the market rate. there is a transparency, it's an open mechanism. There is no need to spend time on arbitration and money on cost. It will also spread out the risk for developers, because if the land price drop, then the 20% will be smaller, and if a bigger profit can be made, then the developer will not mind paying a little bit more from the 20%. Well, what's the response from the administration in this regard? Ms. Lin. A short reply. I don't see any reason why the landowner would agree to pay 80% of the premium assessed when an agreement cannot be reached. Perhaps I will defer to my deputy director from the specialist.
Good morning, everybody. No, I don't see any reason why the developer would pay that price either. I mean, we have a good negotiation process going on at the moment. We have an exchange of views, and we come to an agreement on many cases. Those cases that do have problems will qualify for the arbitration mechanism. I don't see that there's a requirement for us to introduce these kind of 80% payments, which wouldn't help the system. It actually wouldn't speed things up.
But the incentive is the 20%. There is a reduced risk. Next, Mr. KK Fong. Apart from speaking, I would like to deal with my motion as well. I think this scheme is rather destructive. The first destruction is on the special team in the lands department. I think the civil servant team is impartial and professional. I think by launching this scheme, it will give the wrong impression. People may think that the government professional team cannot deal with it. That's why they have to resort to arbitration. If the government offers an objective market rate and it's not accepted, how can a third party make an offer that is agreeable to both? And I am concerned about the deferred benefit. We're talking about an arbitrator with 10 years experience. This is inappropriate. And we have a small pool of arbitrators that is admitted in the paper. Yet, you launch this launch this scheme. I think it's not the right time and it's not appropriate. Any answer from the director? I need to speak on behalf of my colleagues and my department. We propose this framework and this scheme because we truly believe that this will expedite the development of housing and commerce. If we cannot swallow our pride and take the step forward to make sure that the ball keeps rolling, then nothing else we can do will be better than the current situation. We still have some kind of control, and we think that it is important to set the framework in advance. We will make sure that the scheme is monitored, and we will monitor it in a professional way. Mr. Albert Chan, a few years ago I gave you a detailed paper asking the government to use the Australian and Canadian approach, that is, to legislate for mediation and arbitration to deal with land dispute. There was no reply from the government, yet this time the government proposed this scheme to, in effect, open the gate for developers. I fully agree with the current mechanism. And I wonder why you use different ways when it comes to developers and small and individuals. Of course, if it benefits the developers, they will accept it. I am not challenging the department. I am actually challenging the government, the chief executive. He is a surveyor, but he said he doesn't know about surveying when it comes to his own home at the peak. And now you ask surveyors to do something proposed by a chief executive who is a surveyor that doesn't know about surveying. About Waki, we're talking about over 1,000 surveyors report. None of them is accepted by the government. You have completely renegated the professionalism of surveyors. How come this time round, all of a sudden you have complete trust on surveyors? And at the same time, you did not accept the evaluations of surveyors in relation to the Waki case. Ms. Lin, I'm not going to speak on an individual case because I don't have the information. Very often, what we're talking about over 1,000 reports, none of them is accepted by the government. Yes, I'm sure they're very clear about the case. You have to give the director a chance to speak. When it comes to compensation, we cannot accept that it's because it's a deviation of the policy. Mr. Chan, please allow the director to speak. And in relation to this pilot scheme, as I said, that when there are matters in relation to the lease conditions that the parties cannot agree upon, and where there are matters related to lease interpretation or policies, then there will be no arbitration. I think we need a special meeting to deal with this issue, because we're talking about over 1,000 surveyors report, none accepted by the government. Well, I think that when it comes to compensation, surveyors report, the lands department, it gives the impression that it's an insult hurled by the government on the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors. We think we need a select committee to look into this matter, that surveyors discriminated against by the government. I'm speaking for you, Chairman. Mr. Michael Tian. I am actually a freshman here in the LegCo. I remember there was a topic discussed by 2.5 minutes, 2.5 hours, and no one thinks that there is a filibustering because everyone speaks from the bottom of their heart. Before I step into this room, I thought that it's something proposed with good intentions. But with the current political atmosphere, we will not be able to get anywhere. If the Lands Department offers too low a price, then it will not be accepted. I don't think asking a third party to do it will make the situation any better. I've heard a lot of valid points that is worth consideration. When it comes to composition, well, we're talking about a final decision once an award is handed down. Mr. James Toh talked about a retired judge being the president, and Mr. Wu Chiu-wai talks about overseas arbitrators. Well, can all presidents be retired judge? But we may not have enough people who are familiar with the issues with the Hong Kong land situation. Should the administration go back to rethink on this matter? How can you make sure that the composition of a 3-member tribunal will gain the trust of everyone? I think the devil is in the details. If you think that there's no chance of the parties being able to find 3 trustworthy members, then it will be a non-starter. I think it's regrettable if a rational society like Hong Kong will have an assumption like this. Will you be able to fine-tune it, improve it? It would be meaningless for us to continue with the discussion. Will you reconsider certain criteria or qualifications of the arbitrators? And have you spoken to developers? If they do not support it, there is no point for us to agree on it, because once an award is made, then it will have to go ahead. Director, we have spoken with READER, relevant legal professional bodies, arbitration bodies, and institutes of surveyors before we proposed the framework. Of course, READER welcomes an additional avenue, and they are of the view that in certain areas the grip may be too tight, say for example the deposit. We propose this framework after considering all the views, and we try to strike a balance. The member mentions about candidates of the tribunal. But this is only a pilot scheme. We haven't even had the first case. And we are aware that the appointment, the candidates themselves, will have a huge impact on trust and credibility. So we will consider that very carefully. And if we can only get overseas surveyors as arbitrators, I'm afraid that the award will still affect the credibility of the tribunal, because Hong Kong is a special place with unique characteristics. Overseas candidates may not be fully conversant with our situation in Hong Kong. Ms. Ho, I just made it back here for another round of questions. Previously, I asked a question. I learned that someone holds a different view. I want to know who that is. When it comes to the deferred benefit, who is the person that makes a decision that the international norm should be a deciding factor? And we need a clean environment. We need to keep Hong Kong clean in our business society. It won't affect just Hong Kong people. It will affect our image in the international arena as well. Well, because there has been cases involving deferred benefit, so I don't want to see future cases of deferred benefit. I want it prevented. So I want to know who is the person making the decision that the international norm should be the deciding factor when it comes to imposition of appointment control. Director, it's not the case that there is a certain person in a department or a certain rank, a person of a certain rank who wants to deal with deferred benefit, whereas another person decided against it. I remember when the policy address was presented, and in discussions this issue was mentioned, and it was said that this should be considered. In the past few months, when we're working on the framework, we have kept an open mind. We asked relevant stakeholders, departments, including the DOJ and the ICAC, for their opinions, and we've also consulted all parties. And in the end, we come up with the current proposal. I think this kind of confidentiality will not help in boosting the government's credibility. It seems that we have to form a select committee and use our LCPNP to get papers. And in the past, in relation to the Hong Kong Peninsula case, the Leung Chin Men case, we glean the information about the price negotiation from the emails. If there is no transparency, there is no credibility. Well, just now I just said that the public was waiting for the declaration of interest. Immediately, the Bureau Secretary pounced on me, thinking that I was talking about him. And I do think that there needs to be a review on the decision-making process.
As I've said, we spent nearly 2.5 hours on this item, and I've already given ample time to members to ask questions. Some members want to ask further questions. Let me put it this way. If you still want to ask questions, I will allow it, but just 1 minute. And after you have, and then I will not accept any new requests. So who would like to ask for one more round? Just 1 minute each. Priscilla Leung, James To, Abraham Sheck, KK Kwok, Leung Kok Hong, Alan Leung, Kenneth Chen, Albert Chen, Anne Chang. Who else? No, I'll draw a line there. Do we have many 1 minute? This is the last 1 minute. 1 minute for each about this item. Just 1 minute.
嗱，都表示舉咗手啊，表示咗啦，係嘛？即係有興趣再提問嘅嚇，就頭先仲有馮檢基係嘛？馮檢基議員，咁就
And also KK Fong.
陳鑑林議員啊，仲有冇在座邊位？
Chen Kam Lam, who else? Okay, I'll draw a line there. How many? 11. So we need more than 10 minutes. Priscilla Leung, I hope that we will not cast a vote on the motion. Give some time to speak, to discuss that. Originally, it was proposed to be discussed by the AJLS panel. There are many professional groups involved. Can a retired judge do that? If you are an arbitrator, you also receive a fee. I cannot finish everything within 1 minute. If you are familiar, if you want to know about arbitration, ask the professional groups to come along, ask the HKIA to come along to give an explanation. Just 2.5 hours are not enough for what arbitration is. If you just vote it down, that's really not appropriate. Perhaps you need another session to invite the professional groups to come along. You just can't explain offhand. James To. I don't need the administration to reply. I've heard Mr. Michael Tian. He understands the concerns of other members. He feels that the government has to think of it again. Let me point this out. Who does the community trust? Now the professionals come up with a valuation. That is different from the valuation by the real estate developer. There may be a big gap. And now they suggest a mechanism. A lawyer with 10-year experience plus 2 surveyors will decide on how much the premium is. This is public money. I believe the community still trusts the government surveyors. The premium by the government surveyors. Take it or leave it. Instead of having a mechanism which doesn't have any credibility. Ms. Abraham Sheck. You get nothing if you defeat this scheme. A lot of land is locked up in the new territories. Many people in Hong Kong who want to buy land cannot do so. As for land resumption, as suggested by Mr. Leung Kok-hong, how much money does the government have? And then Hong Kong will be changed. Albert Chen will criticize me. Concerning Wake, he says that the government didn't listen to the surveyors. In fact, the surveyors are paid by the administration. The surveyors have to consider the facts. They suggest the evaluations have to be comparable. Why there's need for that's why we need arbitration. If there is arbitration, then the problem would have been resolved. There is a third party who will decide. KK Kwok, if the government wants the arbitration system to solve the problem, that's wishful thinking. If you just look at today's discussion, in the arbitration system, whether it's the president or the arbitrators, they have to be agreed by the landowner. They will only choose the right person before they accept to start the arbitration. And you need high transparency, but your proposal is really not transparent enough. If you want to let the developer to have the favor, you can do so because it's not transparent. The developer doesn't need to assume too much. If they don't want to earn the last dollar, then they can just sell their properties cheaper, and people will be able to buy. Now, Ms. Ning asks us to be humble. Then ask Mr. C.Y. Leung to be humble. Ask him to be modest. He has made up his mind. When we protested, he just walked out. He just walked out. Is he humble? He's arrogant. When we protest, then he walked out. Then he didn't need to be accountable. Just get 2 members to protest, and then he can walk out all the time. Go back and teach him. Teach him to be humble. Please speak to the motion. No, she mentioned humility. She mentioned being humble. We are elected by the voters to check and balance. If your proposal is not feasible, go back. Take it back. Helen Leung. What is said by long hair is relevant. Credibility is the most important criterion in politics. Ms. Ning shouldn't feel frustrated. It is not your problem. If C.Y. Leung asks you for if C.Y. Leung gives you a meal, you're afraid that he will poison you. Now, that's his problem. And I don't think there will be a different outcome if we go to discuss the matter at the AJLS panel as suggested by Ms. Priscilla Leung. The outcome will be the same. Chen Kam-lam. Now, many members say that it is a matter of trust or credibility. I think the arbitration mechanism is to deal with this same problem. In premium negotiations, there is a issue of trust or credibility. Now, some say they trust the civil servants, yet they are afraid that there is passing of favors from civil servants to developers. I suggest, Ms. Ning, please go ahead, be courageous enough. You don't need to worry. Since there is such goodwill, then just launch the scheme so that disputes can be resolved by a third party. In this council, it's hard to implement anything. So just work hard. Kenneth Chan. With regard to the motion which opposes the pilot scheme, whether it can be passed or not, is really irrelevant, because the administration can just close their eyes and push through the scheme. Now the administration claims that it wants to increase land supply. In terms of land supply, in terms of market condition, backgrounds of the arbitrators, confidentiality, so on and so forth, the administration has never answered any such questions. The administration's decision is irrational if it goes ahead with the scheme. I find the proposal really disappointing, and I oppose the scheme. Ms. Albert Chan, I warn the administration. Now, if you just go ahead and ignore the views in this council, you just continue to harm the relationship between the legislature and the executive. Now, because of land premium disputes, you say that the whole up land supply, that the first land that delays land supply. But the scheme has been there for many decades, and in the past, land could be enough for more than 30,000, 40,000 units, and at that time, nobody blamed the premium negotiation. I think C.Y. Leung is just lying. He puts the blame on premium negotiation. I don't believe previous director of lands would accept this argument. Don't put the blame on the lands department for the delay in land supply. And Cheng, it's really tragic, according to Mr. Leung. They will blame anybody if he trip and fall in the street, somebody using his invisible hand or using qigong and trip him. I asked whether the scheme can be extended to civil service civil servant cooperatives who want to redevelop their site. I hope the arbitration mechanism can help. Any case that involves land premium dispute can be put into the scheme if they can provide additional supply. Mr. KK Fong, land supply is the basic argument. You want to give out land. You're anxious to give out land. You don't need a third party. If this is market price, the professionals, the civil servants, they are professionals. They determine the market price. You just want to get a third party so that you can offer a lower premium and you can wash your hands. That's not acceptable. With so much distrust, it is really not suitable to launch a scheme. You're not here to ask our views. You're already doing APIs in the radio, in the TV. And today, we are not to make any decision. You don't need our endorsement. You're just going through the motions. That's really nasty. You have already put up all the APIs.
I have to deal with Mr. Leung Kok Hong's amendment. I believe you all have the wording. Well, there is a change. There's, in the Chinese, is the full name of the committee. This committee instead of this meeting. Mr. Leung Kok Hong, is an amendment? Yes, it's an amendment. It seems that Mr. KK Fong except that the word 本會, this meeting is changed to 本委員會, this committee. They're not asking for funding. There is no need for them to get our endorsement or even have a discussion here. Yes, that's right. Well, then can I move a motion to stop this? Ms. Chang, members can exercise their rights. I think it's for the member to decide. Yes. Then I will move a motion to stop this. So a show of hands in relation to Ms. Chang's motion. Ms. Priscilla Leung asked for the bell to be rung for 5 minutes.
老實講，連涼粉都要咁樣救佢。學嘢咧就要學得，即係要有啲誠懇啲，唔好係咁易。
Well, if you are trying to copy, you will have to go do the whole 9 yards. Tell us which rule.
What
about the next item? Are we going to finish after this? Well, this meeting is scheduled to finish at 12:15. We don't have time for the other items. We will have to make other arrangements to see if we can do it within this legislative session. But I am not sure. If not, we'll have to wait for the next legislative year. I would like to maybe start the next item. If we're running out of time, instead of starting it, we may as well leave the whole thing till next time. You can extend it to 12:30. So we have 45 minutes. We would talk about it as much as we can.
各位委員呢，其實
Members, Ms. Chang's motion is to stop the discussion of this item, not the meeting. We'll put it to a vote. Non-members, please refrain from voting. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Chan Kim Po and Chang, Priscilla Leung, Lo Wai Kok, Is Yuan, Leung Chi Chang, Chan Kam Lam, Michael Tian, Abram Shak, 9-4. Those against, please raise their hands. Fernando Jung, Kwok Ka Ki, Leung Kwok Hong, Kenneth Chan, James To, Wu Chi Wai, Emily Lau, Albert Chan, KK Fong, Ray Chan, Gary Fan, Alan Leung, Sid Ho, (13 against). 9-4, 13 against. So the motion is negatived. Now we deal with Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's amendment to the motion. Chairman, I withdraw it. It is now changed to Sid Ho. Well, I asked Mr. Leung Kwok Hong to do this for me because I thought I would be otherwise engaged, but I'm very happy to do it jointly with Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong withdraws his amendment, and now is moved by Ms. Sid Ho. Wordings are the same. I will now put it to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Mr. Chan Kim Po claims a division. Bell will be rung for 5 minutes. Members, according to Rule 81A of the ROP, members should refrain from voting if they're involved in pecuniary interest unless the interest is shared or common to the majority of the general public, or it is in relation to public policy.
我想講即係或者提醒就係講嗰個修訂動議啊。
I would like to talk about the amendment. Ms. Sit-Ho's amendment is the same as that of Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. It's just that the mover is changed.
We
have time because there is already one agenda item that we cannot deal with. We have a date, it's 22nd of July, Tuesday, between 2:30 and 4:30. This will be the time for us to discuss the remaining items.
The
amendment is that this committee objects to the implementation of the government's scheme or pilot scheme on arbitration to prevent corruption.
主席，我想記錄在案。
陳健波
I want it recorded. Mr. Chen Kin-po. Well, a lot of members are out of Hong Kong. They don't have a chance to express their views. I want it recorded. I want it recorded that a lot of members are out of Hong Kong and they don't have a chance to express their views. I did not get any response when I mentioned about the additional meeting, but I will ask the Secretariat to circulate the information. Let's see what they say, what members said.
贊成呢個修訂動議。
Those in favour, please raise their hands. Fernando Cheung, K.K. Kwok, Leung Kwok Hong, Kenneth Chan, James Toh, Wu Chi-wai, Emily Lau, Albert Chan, K.K. Fong, Wu Chi-wai, Gary Fan, Sit-Ho, Alan Leung. Those against, please raise their hands. Abraham Sheck, Yu Siwing, Lo Wai Kwok, Priscilla Leung, Anne Chang, Chen Kin-po, Leung Chi Cheung, Chen Kam Lam, Michael Tian. Those in favour of Ms. Ho's amendment, 13. Those against, 9. So the motion is carried. Now, since the motion is carried, there is no need to deal with Mr. K.K. Fong's original motion. So we have concluded our discussion of this item. Let us move on to the next item. Please invite the officials into the room. I will add 15 minutes, so we will last until 12:30.
12:30
12:30.
首先咧，我歡迎出席會議嘅政府代表。唔好意思，因為上一次
May I apologize to the government officials who have been waiting? We have overrun on the first item. The list of the officials are in front of you, so I'm not going to introduce them one by one. May I now invite the officials to give a short briefing. I know that you will have a PowerPoint presentation. Please be as brief as possible. Members, on the 27th of May this year, we reported to the development panel the public engagement outcome of the EFLS for Kowloon East. Members have expressed their concerns on 5 items. First, the cost and financial aspects. Second, applicability of modern tramways and other great green transport modes. Third, procurement approach and implementation program for proposed EFLS. Fourth, network coverage of the proposed ELFS. And finally, implications on Kwun Tong Typhoon Shelter. We have provided supplementary information. We have also changed the scope of the proposed feasibility study. Since information is in the paper, we will not provide any introduction. We welcome your questions and advice. According to ROP 83A, if members have any direct or pecuniary interest in respect of the item, and if you want to speak, please declare your interest before you speak. Those who want to ask questions, 8 have indicated, 9 have indicated they want to speak. Will last only 12:30. Michael Tian, Gary Fan, KK Fung, Chen Chi Chun, Wu Chi Wai, Fernando Chang, Chen Kam Lam, Lo Wai Kwok, Helen Leong. 4 minutes each. We may not be able to complete the list, depending on what you whether you make full use of the 4 minutes. Michael Tian, Chairman. Concerning these automatic monorail system, elevated monorail system, this is it's like this. The merit is that the pillar or the columns are just 2 meters wide. I want to say I support the project, but I have doubts about the estimate, which is $12 billion. By 2023, the MOD will be about $18 billion. Why I still support that $18 billion project, which can serve only 200,000 people per day. I think the project has the opportunity for the NT Northwest. It can be a pilot for the system in NT Northwest. At present, the light rail occupies 8 meters in Northwest NT. If we have this system in NT Northwest, there will be 7 meters of road space available in the whole NT Northwest. In East Rail, there will be East Rail has 9 kilometers, 12 stops, and Light Rail 36 kilometers. By 2023, $18 billion MOD. If the same system is replicated in non-NT Northwest, it will be about $70 to $80 billion. A $70 to $80 billion project serving 500,000 people, or maybe even 800,000 people with Hong Shui Kiu and further developments. That is a very important project. This one is a 9-kilometer project in Kowloon East. if it can be successful, if we can agree, it can be replicated in NT-Northwest. The investment, the number of people that will be benefited will be worthwhile. You better not consider the rate of return. 200,000 passengers per day, $4 per trip, times 365 days a year is just about $300 million. You invest 12 billion. You invest $18 billion. So if you can make ends meet on operating costs, that's already very successful. Let's forget about the capital investment. We should find an option that can maximize capacity. The APM will have a capacity 30% more than a monorail system. Please put in more effort to consider APM, automatic people mover system. Why? It is the development bureau which leads the project. Why not the THB? Will you therefore not lead your project in NT-Northwest? The light rail system is bursting to the seams, and Hong Shui Kiu is also under your lead. In the future, with large-scale new towns, you will replicate the monorail system. I'd like to remind members that it's 4 minutes questions and answers, and Mr. Michael Tien has already spent 4 minutes. Please put it down. You will not be able to answer all questions today. Maybe you can put it down, and then at the next meeting, can they just answer in one or two sentences? Can you answer in 1 or 2 sentences? Replicate that in Hong Shui Kiu. I am not reminded. It's always 4 minutes, questions and answers. That's okay. Harmony. Gary Fan. And then KK Fong. According to the administration, the proposed ELFS, basing on 2010 prices, $12 billion. That is 1% IRR is lower than 4% of other public transport systems. With the approval of this project, the costs will be even higher. The 1% IRR may not be achieved. According to information provided by the administration in 2012, it is said that there will be unquantifiable economic benefits. We are asked not to put too much emphasis on IRR. According to this logic, the government is the biggest shareholder of the MTRCL. Because of the unquantifiable economic benefits, the administration should not be too keen on the IRR of the MTRCL. The MTRCL has been listed. It is going after profits. My concern is that this ELFS will follow the footsteps of the MTRCL. I hope the administration can spell it out clearly. In the feasibility study, the management of the EFLS will have to set out various options, whether it's managed by the MTRCL or managed by the government or managed by other bodies. The administration has set out the pros and cons, and the administration should have the say on the management. I thank the member for the view. In the feasibility study, we consider different modes of procurement and different options. We will do a more detailed financial assessment and economic benefit assessment, and having had such information, we will engage the public. We will report to the council. But will you be able to achieve what I ask? you will study whether it's direct you will study the various management options, such as direct management by the government and by other bodies, so that we can make a comparison. We've heard your view, Mr. Fan. In the detailed feasibility study, we will incorporate different options. One option is the government will do the management. Will you be able to do that? We can ask the consultant to think about it. Not to think about it. I ask for guarantee. One of the options will be this. Yes, indeed. And only this can we make the comparison. This must be one of the options. The simple answer is yes. We will consider this. Next, KK Fong. And then Chen Chi-Chun. KK Fong. At the previous meeting, I made my point, and then there is a point in this paper which seems to have incorporated my view, and that's about H. But if you may refer to the 7th slide, the green area is Kowloon East. This is a newly developed area, and I think we should use tramways rather than the monorail, elevated monorail, and that should be a link with the MTR station. There should be a link with the Kai Ching station. At that part, it will be an elevated railway. As for the runway, it will have to go underground, or rather it will have to be elevated in order to cross the Nala, to cross the water. In the green area, it should be a tramway, and then for the connections, it will be elevated. Now you will study the use of tramways. You give me the impression that study item B is most important and H is just ancillary. I hope you can group H and B together. B, study to formulate a well-planned integrated multimodal linkage system by using modern tramways and elevated ELFS. This is what I asked for. It will be a multimodal linkage including tramways linking with elevated EFLS. It is not too long. If you want two systems, we really need to look into the feasibility of this.
And as to whether tramways can be elevated and whether it will attract a higher cost, and we can also include that in the scope of our study. Any follow-up? Well, would you consider adding what I've said under B to add the words modern tramway system? Would you consider adding those words? Under B, yes, yes, it's already included. We can make it clear. We will make that clear when we go to PWSC. Next, Mr. Ray Chen, to be followed by Mr. Wu Chi-Wai. Thank you. I remember in a previous meeting we have already voted down the last paper. This time round, it was a change. They have introduced some minor change and come back to us. I object to the monorail. I support modern tramway. Well, at that time, it was estimated that the monorail, it will cost $12 billion, whereas a modern tramway will only cost $3 billion. We asked the administration as to why they would not consider modern tramway. They gave us a lot of excuses. That's the last meeting. And this time round, they have given a list of examples of a monorail system in the paper. In paragraph 6, it says monorail technologies are well established. No, not well established, but outdated. Do you know that there are only about a dozen cities in the world using monorail system? You have given examples. Chongqing, Osaka, and Tokyo, and Okinawa. The Chongqing system was a project started by Botilai, and it wants to be the longest in the world, 75 kilometers, and is still expanding. Do you know that for modern tramway, there are over 300 cities in the world using it? Japan, where is a land of railways, has given up monorail. Well, Mr. Michael Tian said that they are in mid-air, but we still need stations, we still need buttresses, we still need footbridges. Paragraph 17. Yes, you have taken on board the views expressed. In PowerPoint 5, we found that electric buses, and you've even added the automatic people mover. So it gives the impression that there is a preconceived stance that you really want the monorail system, and this is only fake study, because you spend 90% of the matter on monorail, and you just slap on modern tramway, and in the end, I'm sure you're going to tell us that tramway is not as good as monorail. KK Fong asked you to devote an equal share of resources to study tramway, electric buses, and monorail instead of using 90% of the resources on monorail. Would you undertake that it will be a study on equally on all these items? Yes, it will be on all these items, a parallel study. I would like to say that we have already done a round of study during the preliminary feasibility study. We have considered different systems, including tramway and monorail. The findings of the preliminary feasibility study shows that monorail has a higher feasibility. For mono tramway, since it's not elevated, and given the constraint of the transportation network in Kowloon East, there is a lower feasibility. And this time round, we would like to look in depth as to whether it can indeed be done in Kowloon East. I would like to get some supplementary information in relation to the $92 million, how much is spent on modern tramway and how much on monorail. Next, Mr. Wu Chi-wai, to be followed by Dr. Fernando Zhang. Mr. Wu. Thank you. You're talking about $12 billion for the construction of the monorail. Of course, we are concerned. The public are concerned. We do need an external transportation system linking up Kai Tak and other areas. Otherwise, it will be cut off. You asked for money to conduct a study. There are some amendments, and I see that in paragraph 17. But what we're talking about, monorail, monorail, modern tramway, BRT, automatic people moving system, electric buses, they should all have the same weight when it comes to the study. When you come for funding application, we want to see all these 5 items and in-depth studies into all these 5 items, and not one that is lopsided, aiming at ruling out all the others except monorail. So will you adjust paragraph 17 so that we can see there is an equal weight given to external transportation system linking up Kai Tak and other areas? It's only when you do this that we may support you, because if you adopt the same approach, we have the same reason to object to your proposal in FC. I thank Mr. Wu for his question. For different systems, there is a different degree of complexity. We can't spend the same amount of money on studying different items. We spend that sum on the different systems. We will identify one that is most cost-effective, that will benefit pedestrian, visitors, and local people most. Then we will make a recommendation for discussions by the public and then let go. If there is no preconceived stance that monorail is preferred, well, I would like to say that there is no preconceived idea. We keep an open mind, so don't think that we have our hearts set on monorail. That is not the case. We use monorail as the basis because we have done a preliminary feasibility study. We have compared the different systems. Based on the findings of the preliminary study, it seems that the monorail is more feasible. And that's why we will continue with a more in-depth study. Dr. Fernando Zhang, we're running out of time. I think after Dr. Zhang, we have no time for other members. Dr. Zhang, please. Whether it is a monorail, modern tramway, or other modes of transport, I think we do have to look into it. We see that for Heathrow in London, they use an elevated system. It's called Ultra. Is an automated tramway. And for automatic people mover system is a different system. You talk about a preliminary feasibility study. Can you give us some information from that study, especially the report? We find it strange because we don't see the Highways Department, we don't see EMSD, we don't see the Transport and Housing Bureau involved in the development. It's led by the Development Bureau. So I want to know, are there any other government departments mentioned by me involved in the preliminary feasibility study? What roles did they play? And can you publish? Can you give us the report? We have entered the final stage of the preliminary feasibility study. We're drafting the report. Once we have it, we will make it public. In relation to Ultra at Heathrow, we have looked into it, but it's a small system. Each car can carry 6 people, so it's like an automated elevated taxi system. If we're talking about 200,000 passenger trips per day, that is not sufficient. What about participations of EMSD, Highways Department, and THB? Were they involved? Yes. There were 2 rounds of consultation. Assuming that we are going to adopt the monorail system, we see that 2 stops at 2 public housing estates have been taken off. You said that these estates are closer to other system, the future Sha Tin Central line and the MTR line. But we're talking about the EFLS being an intra-district system, a different system from inter-district ones. We have to take into account the transportation needs within the district of these two estates, and don't take away these two stops so easily. Well, we only propose the cancellation in the second round consultation, and in the detailed feasibility study we will again look into putting the two stops in it. You mentioned 2023. We already have the cruise terminal, and for energizing Kowloon East, the commercial district in the coming few years, and they will be all in place. When you construct the monorail system, there will be construction work at grade. So in the coming few years, we're talking about obstructions and difficulties in ensuring a smooth traffic. The detailed feasibility study include matters covering the times prior to the commissioning of the EFLS. As we've said, it will study to formulate a well-planned integrated multimodal linkage system. There will be some transitional arrangements put in place. We'll continue with the discussion next time. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.